All right, welcome back to the War Room. I'm here with Karsten once again, and we are back talking about some dirt bikes. It's been a minute. The last 2 months have been crazy. There's always some kind of craziness that comes up in both of our lives, but we're here. We're just in time to kind of wrap up all the craziness of the last couple rounds of Supercross and then preview the great outdoors, the Motocross 2024 season. Super excited to get into it. So, Karsten, what are we talking about first in regards to kind of summing up the last couple weeks?
I mean, it was both championships really came down to the last couple rounds there. A month ago, it did not look like RJ was going to take it, and it did not look like Tom was going to take it. But before we get into that, we've got some changes coming up here with who's riding for what brand. And what colors they're going to be sporting this next season.
Yeah, that's to say the least.
Yeah. Once again, Star continuing to collect every rider available. The stable is filling.
They're just flexing, brother. They're just cutting checks. I mean, I think there was a direct quote from one of their team principals. This is if you own half the bikes at the gate, one of them's going to win. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and somehow they haven't won a championship in a couple years now. So the strat is
since Christian Craig.
Working.
Since Christian Craig.
What was it 3 years ago? No.
Shoot, that was 3 years ago.
Yeah,
that was when Malcolm had his best season. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. I'm excited about this though. I think we got some great changes coming. So what are we looking at here?
So the big thing was Max Anstey leaving his privateer team of Firepower Hound to go to Star. So that will be big. It'll be the first time he's been on a factory team in quite a long time. Obviously, he got I think it was his first main event win with Firepower Honda in the second to last round, which was big. Really, really good accomplishment for him to finally get that. We've seen the qualifying pace from Max Anstey all season, and I've been like, okay, can he finally get it done? Can he do it? And it might have been. Oh wait, no, it's his second because he won the Mutter last year, so it's his second career win. I was wondering why I was hesitating with that. Second career win. He won the Mutter at New Jersey last year, right? And that when Barcia won, I'm pretty sure.
Something. Yeah, I think that might be right.
Yeah, he won the Mutter in New Jersey last year, but that's a Mutter. So it's not like it's illegitimized. It's like, okay, but can he win when the conditions are normal? So in this case, conditions are normal, dry track. He just straight up whooped everybody. So that was cool to see. And now Star is awarding him with a factory ride. So it'll be interesting to see if he can go from just a race winner potential to a title contender potential. And, he's got the 250 class is very much stacked for the factory teams next season. And of course we see that every year and then half of them get hurt. So it could
who knows?
Yeah. Further on where we have Pierce Brown going to Star, leaving Gas, which has been his home for the last couple of years. Keep in mind, this is a guy that gave Christian Craig a run for his money. Just 3 years ago, it was him, Hunter Lawrence, and Christian Craig that were competing for that 250 title. And he's had a couple down years. A lot of inconsistency. Still having the speed, but a lot of times he just can't keep it on two wheels. He and Ryder DiFrancesco both.
He's doing all right. I feel like he had a good season this year. He didn't have any
better
wins,
than last for sure,
but he was up there in the points. I think he was top 5, wasn't he? So
I think he was top 5. But keep in mind, one of those top 5 beating him, I believe, was Cody Schock. So that just kind of shows you just how off I could be wrong because it could be in a different class, but I know Cody Schock was third.
No, I think you're right.
And you have to keep in mind that basically all the Kawasaki's dropped massively in the standings.
Yeah.
Faulkner, McAdoo, and Hammaker. Hammaker, he's still healthy, but he just kept screwing his own races over.
So Pierce Brown was 4th, 1 point behind Cody Schock. But still not a terrible season, and he was up there a couple times, duking it out a little bit. So
like I said, not terrible, but for a rider who 3 years ago was a top 3 in the championship and was on the outside looking in once the Lawrences moved to try to be that guy. I mean, even when Christian Craig moved, we didn't know if in the class that didn't have Jet and it was just him and Hunter, if he could be that guy that would challenge Hunter, which he ended up not being. We were just expecting him to take some more bigger steps, and we just haven't seen that yet. If anything, we've seen a little bit of a step back. So it'll be interesting to see if with a new ride, if that will help change things. So, but like I said, the big thing with Pierce Brown's deal is he is going to be going from the steel frame to the aluminum frame. So that's a bigger change than Max Anstey, who's just going to be switching from Honda power unit to Yamaha power unit. You know, different frame designs, but not material designs, not different changes in the bike's behavior. So obviously we've seen that be a bigger problem with the 450s than it has been the 250s, but it will be something to look at. And with Pierce Brown, I mean, look, I think the 250s, the Japanese bike in the 250s still have a little bit more of an edge overall than the 250 Austrian bikes in regards to just overall performance, but it's not as bad of a difference in regards to just the difference in behavior as it is in the 450s. The 450s, it's so different.
I think you're probably right about that, but if we look at our two champions, both Austrian, I mean,
I know.
Out of nowhere.
But
it's a party.
It did take a bunch of Japanese bikes going down.
It did.
I mean, and not that it was necessarily required, because still RJ still was able to beat Levi straight up multiple times. But you know, it's not like there weren't Japanese bikes in contention, right? Yeah. And there was more Japanese bikes in contention than Austrian. So we'll get that in a second. The other big one was Garrett Marchbanks is going back to Pro Circuit Kawasaki, which means with that probably comes a 90% probability that he'll race 4 races, have winning potential, then crash in practice and be out for 2 years. And Mitch Payton
his insurance just went up.
Yeah, his insurance just tripled for no reason at all other than that. And then Mitch Payton will have another person to worry about and need therapy for, as if Austin Faulkner, Seth Hammaker, Cameron McAdoo, who are all returning, weren't enough. I mean,
his underwriter immediately called and was like, wait a minute, your bike is going to be green next year? Premium.
Not to mention that you would have thought the bridge would have been burned, but no, because he used to ride for them. So who knows? But he did have a good season with his, the Muck-Off Yamaha team, which is not full factory. So he showed some good strides. That'll be interesting to see, though, because he's a bigger rider. He's pretty tall. He's kind of like an AP. So I don't know how that's going to affect his riding going from that to a Kawasaki, or really just his 250 in general, because it's not a chassis change or anything in regards to material. So it'll be interesting to see. So are we going to dig into the finale? What do we want to talk about first with that?
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, very interesting coming into it. I was just looking at the numbers here. I love the numbers. And you wouldn't have thought this going into the night, but the 250 East Championship technically was actually a closer battle than 250 West. Vial only won by 4 points over Deegan, and RJ won by 5 points over Levi. So the
key was going in even points in the West, right?
Right.
So
going in even
obviously there was a lot of pressure on that one, and Vial was in coast mode, so that was part of it
for the most part. Yeah. And I don't know if you were watching the heat races or not, but Vial barely made the main.
I know, P9, right?
I mean, yeah, he was. I'm obviously rooting for Deegan, so I was like, holy cow! Imagine he has to go to the LCQ. I mean, he would presumably win the LCQ, but just having to go and race that much extra, you're going to be tired going to the main.
And it's a showdown, so it's not like a regular 250 coast main, east or west, to where you've got like 7 good guys, and then the rest are privateers for the most part. So if you get a bad start, it's pretty easy to get up at least into the top 10. In this case, I mean, you're going to have at least 16 factory riders you're going to have to work through. If you get a bad start or you get a bad gate pick, which will result in a bad start, I mean, that could be, like you said, it very worrisome.
Yeah, but he pulled it out even with a terrible gate pick. I think he started out maybe like 10th or 11th and worked his way up a couple positions, got comfortable, and was like just cruised, because that's all he had to do.
It's the luxury, right?
Yeah, because that would be, I mean, if he's sitting up there chilling in 5th, 6th place and just some small mistake throws it away, I mean, that would suck. So
absolutely,
he didn't do that, and that'd be the time whenever it would happen. That would be just your luck.
Well, I would also say in regards to the Vial and Deegan thing, and it's tough to say this, but Deegan being really, really close but not winning it honestly is better for his development and not getting burnt out. He even mentioned that, like, I want to compete for that championship, but honestly, I need another year in 250s before I go to 450s because my rookie year was last year. Like, I just need more time here before I go 450s. There was rumors of even trying to just win here and then go 450s next year, and I was like, no, no, it's not happening, dude.
He needs to get more consistent, because there's times when you can tell he seems to push a little more and get a little bit sloppier, especially when he's right up on somebody and he has those moments where the bike gets unsettled and he's losing time. And if he can in those moments keep it dialed and not get, just a little squirrely, because, like, I mean, just the slightest, too much throttle here, not enough there, too much brake, whatever it is, that can be huge. So,
well, and it's weird watching Deegan do that, right? Because to me, that's an older style of riding, of just muscling the bike around, bulldogging it, as they say. And you being an Eli Tomac fan, you're very familiar with watching that and just being amazed watching someone just throw the bike around and just, go beast mode as Eli Tomac does. There's not a lot of riders that do that nowadays. It's really more of a finesse game, especially with the behavior and how high-end twitch these Japanese bikes tend to be nowadays. Obviously, with the steel frames, you have a little more flex, but we're not even seeing those guys take advantage of it as much and really muscle the bikes around as much. You see it every now and then, especially for certain moves, but you see less and less riders using that as their overall form of pace, right?
yeah.
Tomac still does it. And obviously, because of the fact that his beast mode, especially in Supercross, when you're doing more start and go, is kind of his primary way of really extending gaps or creating gaps and winning races that way. That's why it's taken, I think, Tomac longer to recover and get back to his top riding. And I still think we haven't seen it all the way there yet. And obviously towards the end of the season, he was still dealing with some little injuries with little ankles and here and there. But I think with that style of riding, it does take you longer to come back from a really gruesome injury like what he went through. But Deegan doing that it is a style of old. I think that's been understated. There's not a lot of riders that have that as their overall style of riding. And I think it's really interesting to watch because it's just something different. And people think it's just more immature style of riding. I think, yes, that's typically what you see from younger riders. They're more willing to do that because they haven't had as many consequences of what can happen when you do that and you're not in control. But I also think, like, you look at who's training him and, having his dad in his corner and, the guys that are working around with Star and him literally going and training Eli Tomac, I think he's a guy that can make that work. And I don't see him changing from that. I really don't. And it especially works for him outdoors. We saw what kind of magic he was able to pull off and create a title fight with Hunter Lawrence that never should have happened. Right. So,
dude, so sick. Yeah,
exactly. So, but I do think two things. One, Deegan not winning this and being forced to be up in 450s in the next 2 years is better for him long term. The last thing we want with these young talents is to basically see what happened to Adam Cianciarulo, to where he's going into the 450s and already so beaten up to the point where he finally gets to the premier class, or he gets there too early, and then he gets to the 450 class. He has too many injuries early that basically take away from his prime years. And the reverse of that, though, this is the second point, is the reverse of that is like an Austin Faulkner, to where he has too much incidents hanging around the 250 class where you have way more young riders that are prone to crash into you. And, either you just never get all the way to making in the 450s, or by the time you do, you're like a Colt Nichols or an RJ, where you just finally got a year where you figured it out, but then you're already 29 going into the premier class. I mean, there's two different sides to it. And obviously there's a window that Deegan's trying to work with of, okay, I'm going to have my first 2 years, then I'm going to win a championship. Then I'm in 450s, a year after that, and that's ideal. But you always got to worry about him turning into an Austin Faulkner, to where it just bad luck after bad luck after bad luck spends too much time in that lights class. And obviously, Steve Mathis jokes all the time about the best thing you can do is be a really good race winning 250 rider that never wins a championship, and you just keep collecting the same factory level checks. But you never have to go up to the 450s, where it's a lot more brutal, to where you have to race a full 17 rounds, right? So,
Yeah.
Obviously financially he'd be fine doing what Austin Faulkner has unfortunately had to do. But heck, even nowadays you get to be in opening ceremonies as a 250 rider, which was unheard of until last year. But it's just something that is like, okay, like I get that it makes perfect sense that he's saying he didn't feel like he was ready to win this year and have to be in 450s in another year at the end of another year. But from here on out, he really like that. He's got to win next year and just get out of there. He does not need to mess around. Now, obviously, when you have factory support like he does with Yamaha, we've seen people before that have that support, like with Justin Cooper. That okay, look, they haven't gotten the title done necessarily, or as many as they should have, to where they're forced to go up, but they just know that they're good enough to be in the 450s, and they just need to stop messing around. So they just bring them up anyways, and that could absolutely happen with Deegan. But he has the potential, and you want to see him go up in the way that it's designed to happen. So, anywho, all right, I've talked enough about that. There was another coach that we want to talk about, right?
Yeah. Vial came out of nowhere, really, I feel like there towards the end.
I completely forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so he came up and which one were you thinking we talk about next? I feel like we hit on.
No, I mean, I was thinking about West Coast, but I didn't even get to talk about Vial yet, and I can't.
We got.
And I had a whole piece on him. I mean,
So Vial,
I want to get your thoughts first. What are your thoughts on Vial pulling this off in just his second year ever racing Supercross?
Well, I feel like he won this thing at the last showdown, because prior to that race, which one was that?
So you mean like the second to last showdown, like the one before the finale, right?
Yes, the one before that. I feel like before that race, he wasn't even someone we were really thinking about as far as the title goes. It was what was it, Hammaker and Deegan, really.
And McAdoo at one point too, because at one point he was your red plate holder.
Yes,
when McAdoo went down, because McAdoo was so consistent.
Yeah, and so going into that race, then Deegan, he didn't finish well. Vial was the top guy for the East, and so
and Vial won Daytona. Can't forget about that.
True, which that's if anybody was going to, and that's his kind of track. It's more motocrossy. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. But I feel like at that race with the first showdown, that's where he won the thing. That's where he came into it and was now looked at as somebody who could win this. Because before that, I don't even think I wasn't paying attention to him as a title contender.
I was paying attention to him because I just wanted to see where he developed, but I don't think he was really in anyone's mind as a Supercross title contender. Now, outdoors, everyone's got him on his list, and everyone had him on his list before he won this championship because, like many people know, he's a two-time MX2 or MXGP Lights class champion. He's won 2 world championships in the outdoors 250 class before he came over here. So, and I think that did play in his ability to execute on those last 2 rounds.
He's a winner. There's no question. Winners win.
And like I said, I will say I was tremendously impressed with his ability to take that next big step in regards to handling Supercross this year. I remember I got to watch him. So what was really cool last year at the Houston race that I went to, I got to see Hayden Deegan's first ever professional race in which he got 4th, which was incredible. And I got to see Tom Vial's debut as well, which at that time I had no idea who he was. I just saw this KTM number 128 rolling around. I was like, that dude looks like he's been here before, but I know he hasn't. I was like, what's going on? And then he was in the top 5 or top 4. I think he even was leading a heat race at one point. I forget, but he was looking really, really good. And then I think he tipped it over in the sand section or whatever, but still got a top 10. But I walked away from that going, whoever that 128 was, I know he went down late in the race or whatever, but that dude looks good. And then afterwards was like, yeah, that was his first Supercross race ever. And I was like, no. Now, obviously later on in the season, we saw more and more of just him getting used to the whoops and Supercross in general. And we knew later on in the season he was going to need more time, but I didn't expect him to make the jump he did this year in regards to just his race ability and raw pace on Supercross. Now, I will say the one thing that did play into his favor with him being a guy that's still getting used to the whoops, and a guy that is not as fast as other riders like RJ or Levi Kitchen, or in his class, Hayden Deegan, Jordan Smith, McAdoo, Faulkner, is the whole thing with Supercross, the Dirtworks crew deciding to go down to all Supercross tracks being 9 whoops or less in the whoop sections, which very controversial. They had this, apparently the AMA had this whole statistic thing of like the amount of injuries that were caused in whoop sections that had 10 whoops or more was like supposedly, even though they're not publicly releasing the statistics, nor did they ask the riders if they were okay with doing this, which I think was a big problem. Because the riders are the ones that have the most problems with it, because you have your guys like a Malcolm Stewart and Eli Tomac, even a Jet Lawrence, a Faulkner and RJ that are great in the whoops, and they make passes there that now it's just as fast to not skim the whoops and go 3.33. So that definitely played into Vial's hands. Not that he was terrible at the whoops and that just completely saved him, but he's not a guy that can make passes there all the time.
Yeah, he wasn't gaining time there.
I would still say even in his first year, he was definitely losing time there. I would say this year with him being able to go 3.33 in a lot of the whoops that were in these nine whoop configurations, he was able to just stay even. So, we'll see how he does next year, because I think they're going to get rid of that. I think they're going to. The word is, I heard they're going to possibly get rid of that whole 9 whoop thing next year. Let's just pray they do.
Go back to more.
Oh, for the love of God, if there's one thing that I want I'm getting heated about this because I've been holding this in for a while. For the love of God, Dirtworks, go more than 9 whoops, or release these statistics that apparently the AMA and you guys say made this decision for you and was so obvious. But more importantly, for the love of all that is holy, can we please put bowl turns after whoop sections instead of flat turns? You know how stupid that was to watch on like all of the last, except for the finale, like the last 5 rounds, it was all like, it just took away the whoop sections from being a passing area, because if you do send it, then you're gonna get passed by just a little switchback, because you do have to break for that flat turn or you're losing time, because you're gonna have nothing to stop you going wide.
Yeah.
So there was just no way to pass in the whoops, and they were doing the same thing earlier. It should just be a given that you have to have a 180-degree bowl turn after a long whoop section. Like I was already pissed about them doing 90-degree rights or lefts. Like. That's already bad enough, because 90-degree turns after whoops are already almost impossible to pass on to begin with. But at least it ain't no flat track. You can't have that. Okay. So, all right, I got my piece out. That better change. Okay. I'm going to quote from Rocket Power Mohawk, I am calm. But, okay. Yes. And then there's the West Coast, right? A lot of stuff going on over there.
Yeah. So RJ and Levi come in tied. I thought Levi was going to take it. I'll be honest. That was really Levi.
I thought he had the momentum. I really did.
Yeah, it felt that way, and he didn't. He did not. He had guys in between him. He was putting in a chase. I think if that race had been longer, he might have had a shot, because I know RJ started getting held up by Deegan there towards the end.
Because RJ even said he didn't want to pass Deegan. He did not want to get wrapped up in a fight with Deegan and get taken out.
Yeah, which makes sense. You don't want to risk it trying to get first. He didn't need it.
Well, and part of the reason he caught up was Jordan Smith decided to just go kamikaze on Deegan and fight him, and then try to take him out by going outside. In which case, I didn't understand what Jordan Smith was thinking there.
It was the exact same as that heat race last year, where Jordan was trying to go after Deegan. It was identical. Instead of a right-hand turn, it was a left-hand turn. But it was the exact same. He came up, got behind him, bike got caught, and Deegan looks back and he's like, dude, what are you doing? You just ran into me and crashed yourself.
Yep.
So, so our RJ beat him pretty much straight up. They were both qualified well, had good heat finishes, and
and Levi beat him in the heat race. Obviously, RJ was right behind him, and RJ, in a direct quote after, said that he wanted to, like, if the pass was there, like, and it was really obvious, like if Levi made a mistake, he would have made the pass, but he wasn't trying to force it because he wanted to make his gate pick based off of whatever Levi did. And that turned out to be crucial. Yes. That turned out to be crucial. And that was part of the reason that RJ was able to get a little bit better of a start. I forget exactly how it played out, but I know Levi took, I think, more of an inside route that ended up getting cut off because Deegan ripped a really good start and kind of took away his line. And RJ got away from the Yamaha bike, so he did not get his line cut off. He was able to beat the guys right next to him. And I'm pretty sure what happened was Deegan lined up right next to Levi. And those Star bikes are so quick off, and they still have the best power unit. The Star Yamaha bike pulled the whole shot.
Well, and they're at a little bit of elevation, so it's got some advantage there. Yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, like I said, I knew it would be heartbroken for either RJ or Levi because they're both awesome guys. They're both great riders. They've both ridden well enough to deserve that title. But I was pulling for RJ not just because I'm a Husqvarna fan, but also because I really just wanted to see RJ win one and be able to have a reason to go to Husqvarna and be like, freaking put me in, coach. Get me in the 450s. Like, stop screwing around. We know RJ. Obviously, he's even saying he needs more time on the 450, but we watched a dude win a heat race at Daytona. Get the guy on the freaking 450 right now.
He did. He beat Coop.
Stop messing around. Stop messing around. Stop messing around. Just stop it. Stop it. But I'll be excited to see him be in the 450s in another year's time. But Levi is, I expect Levi to win that next year. And if it weren't for McAdoo slamming into him at the second to last showdown, Levi probably would have walked away with it. But that is the beauty of Supercross, because there was plenty of times that RJ had bad nights because of other people as well.
Yeah, that's just how it is.
That's just how it is. I mean, look at Faulkner. I mean, look at McAdoo. I mean, there's so many other guys that went down for either their own circumstances or just the craziness of the sport. I mean, Faulkner lost his season because he's racing literally 3/4 of a race in Arlington with a contact loose in his own goggles, just floating around. And then he's a half inch off or an inch off in his triple over a tabletop, clips the tabletop, and then you and me are all of a sudden watching him go 60 feet in the air from one side of that football field in AT&T Stadium and land 20 yards in front of us to the left and just out like a light. Just good night, which was so scary. I've never been to a sporting event and thought, like, just witness something and go, he probably dead. Like that was a consideration. I've never had that. That's just how the sport works. And thank God Austin's okay. But that's just gives you an idea of just like anyone who wins a title absolutely deserved it, because you have to be there for all 17. Look at Chase Sexton last year, right?
Yep. It's about those ones where you didn't win, but you got second, third, fourth kind of thing.
As Pulp MX's Jason Thomas, AKA a lot of people call him Hair Gel Guy, from the Field Reporter. You win on your bad nights. You win championships on your bad nights. So that's no other testament than RJ and Levi's championship there. And RJ rode a perfect race, got the start he needed, maintained very, very well. That track was really tough to pass on with the hard pack. The rain honestly made that track more raceable, believe it or not, because it just softened it up just a little bit. But that track still wasn't the best for passing.
I don't know if you watched the Supercross Futures race at the beginning, but it was so dusty.
Yep.
Oh my gosh! It looked like the desert out there.
Well, never mind that. You saw what happened to Cody Schock in the first heat race.
Yeah,
the dude pulled the whole shot and then just went straight into the bleachers practically. Dude was ready to go see his mama.
Yeah.
Like Jacoby Jones returning a punt return from the Texans in 08. Like,
just keep on going.
Just keep on going to the bleachers, buddy. Go in section one. Like, I mean, that was wild.
Forrest Gump scoring touchdown.
Pretty much. Just keep going. So that kind of wraps up the 250s. Obviously, 450s, not too much to say. Jet, I mean, 9 wins in 17 races. I believe he's the first rookie since Ryan Dungey to win in his rookie season of 450. Yeah, yep, that's right. Yep, stats.
Correct.
There we go, baby.
He's the third one ever behind McGrath and Dungey.
Yep.
Great company, obviously. And what is this, like? He's won 7 championships in a row, or something.
Yep.
We got 250 East, 250 West. He won all the outdoors in between there. He won the 450 outdoors. He won the Super Motocross Championship.
Now he's got this.
He won Supercross. I mean,
watch out.
Yeah,
But
I'm thinking,
never doubt this sport's ability to cause parity.
right,
Okay?
because one tiny wrong move by somebody else, even, and he's out for the season. I mean, it can happen like that.
I mean, look, even this season, like it came down, we were tied in points. Like as dreaded as it looked with how good Jet looked early in the season, right? You think about his run after Daytona, right? I think he had 3 straight wins after Daytona. Well, and Daytona includes, so 4 straight, I believe. And then all of a sudden, we're like, okay, this is doomsday. You know, the mud races we had where Jet struggled kind of held us off, gave us some parity, some different race winners, gave us some hope for some title fights. And oh, well, now the inevitables come. Here's Jet walking away with it. And then out of nowhere comes Cooper Webb. And all of a sudden, we're 4 races to go with 2 red plates, right? Tied on points. And unfortunately, at the worst time, Cooper Webb goes down in practice and torn UCL in his thumb, and dude gets arm pump after 10 laps. Every race afterwards. So there's an argument to be made that, you know, maybe Cooper, with how good he looked in just raw speed in those rounds before that injury, there's an argument to be made that Cooper could have took him down in the last round. I mean, he did even despite that mathematically, but I'm talking like with a not either a winner take all or just a 1 to 2 spot position needed to where a bad start could do that. Like with what happened with RJ and Levi, it can make the difference. Like I definitely think Cooper could have done that because he's such a gamer. But unfortunately, he was just taken out of really contention, even though he raced all those rounds, because, you know, he's riding with one hand. You're going to get arm pump in like 5 laps, and that's exactly what happened. So I'll be interested to see what happens next year in the 450s when we come back with a Chase Sexton who hopefully has the KTM dialed in for Supercross. It isn't sitting there, you know, adjusting clickers his entire time. And with a healthy Cooper Webb and Eli Tomac that gets back in full shape, is able to start beast moding it and bulldogging the bike around some more. And
Hunter, a little more used to the bike, will be interesting.
Hunter as well. Dude, Hunter was looking really, really good those last couple rounds. I think he could be a sleeper next year, but he's also someone we're going to be talking about for outdoors too.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, a few minutes.
So we've also got a little bit of some changes. So RJ wins the title.
Correct.
And now is he going, what's he doing for motocross this season? Is he racing 250 motocross?
Yeah. So RJ, after winning the championship, kind of revealed his full plan. He is going to race all of 250 outdoors, all of 250 super motocross. And then in his off season, what he said he wants to happen, which he thinks he said will happen, is he wants to train all off season on the 450 because he needs that time on the 450, defend for all 7 plus the 3 showdown rounds for 250 West, but then race opposite coast 450 to get him that experience, right?
Okay.
And then debut in the 450 class in outdoors of next year. So not messing around and doing another full year 250, just one more, defend his Supercross title and then enough.
Gotcha. So he'll be full-time. If it goes the way he's wanting it to, he'll be full-time 450 starting 25 motocross.
Correct.
And then Supercross. Okay.
And honestly, I think his plan, like every single part of it is exactly how it should be.
I think it is a great plan. He gets to defend his title. He gets
that experience on the East Coast.
Get the other tracks in.
On the big bike.
And race a full that many rounds, because that's not the same. That's different on your body.
Exactly. Great point.
Yeah, I think it's a good move.
I think Husqvarna is stupid not to put that exact same thing through.
Yeah, I'm all about it.
Yeah. But
now, somebody else not racing full time. We got Colt 45 out here. Now, what is he doing this summer?
So Colt 45, along with like Ken Roxon, are in kind of a tough spot because
is he going to the lake? What's he doing? Is he vacationing?
No.
Luckily going somewhere for fun?
No. So Beta has not committed to racing the full 450 outdoors. And there's a potential he can get them to do SMX. But the main thing is Colt, I believe, is still under contract or is just still choosing to do World Supercross Ken Roczen is the same deal. He'll only do select outdoor rounds, so he will not be a championship threat. Even though if he did the full thing, he would be a championship threat. He would be one of the few that could consistently challenge Jet, as we saw last year with him doing a one-off, basically off the couch.
Yeah.
He was the only other person to lead laps other than Jet Lawrence in the 450 outdoors last season. Just take note, okay?
Which is such
puts some respect on the German chocolate's name, okay?
Yeah.
But it's those two are the same to where they'll do select outdoor rounds for motocross, but they're going to be racing and training for the World Supercross Championship that Ken is locked in on like a huge money deal because he was part of getting that series started. They needed to go when they launched World Supercross 2 years ago. They're like, we got to have a big name in here that's going to draw crowds. Ken Roczen was perfect to do that. So he has this year, and then I think he'll be done with that 3-year deal and then can do whatever he wants. But yeah, Colt is going to be doing a similar thing to where he'll race select outdoor rounds, but he'll still be doing all of the rounds for World Supercross that overlap. So I would look for him to come in for a couple rounds. The question will be if he'll be on the beta or not, because I don't think beta has that in the works.
So he might be on a different bike.
He might be doing a privateer. I mean, heck, last time he borrowed somebody's Kawasaki from Swamp Moto Live and raced that sucker to get some points and got a top 10. So
whatever gets the job done.
Yep. Slap a couple sponsors on there, steal someone else's trailer, which he did. Call it good. So that's what you're going to see out of Colt 45 and Ken Roczen.
Well, that's going to be exciting. I can't wait for that. I'm glad they're at least showing up to some rounds, and I'm sure they want to get some points for Super Motocross. It's a good thing they did that with the whole combining the points together, because for guys like that, it might not have been they might have had no reason at all to go.
Exactly.
And
exactly. And we want to see the stars out in the outdoor series. We want to entice those guys to come out. You think of all the years that like Malcolm Stewart or even sometimes James Stewart and other big names would just do Supercross only because they'd get more money doing that and they wouldn't have to risk themselves outdoors. And this is part of getting outdoors back to the same pedigree as Supercross like it used to be. Right. So
which outdoors, I mean, it's
fantastic.
Dude, I think oftentimes it's more exciting because there's such great battles and it's so fast. I mean,
and you get 40 guys lining up at the gate.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So,
badass, dude.
It's great. It's great. The only other thing I want to talk about in regards to silly season before we move on to 2 interesting questions I got for you. Well, I got 2 things. So we saw Justin Barcia really improve and get a top 5 to finish out the season.
Out of nowhere. I mean, that was
out of nowhere.
I was just thinking before that race, like, man, I wonder what Justin Barcia is going to do next year, because this wasn't a great season for him. Like, is he good? Does he still got it? And then I look up and it's like, holy cow, this guy's
top 5.
Yeah, this guy's freaking crushing right now.
Yep. Yep. So he was asked, hey, exactly what you're thinking. Hey, what the heck? What changed? And to quote, he fired everybody. he fired everybody, changed the bike before the last race, and rode way better. So you know what, Malcolm? Fire everybody. Everybody.
Yeah.
Now, whoever's doing your suspension, fire him. Whoever decided to get your frame 4 weeks too late and give the KTM guys the frame 4 weeks before you, fire them. Out the door now. No 2 weeks notice. Gone. Sorry.
Well, legal. They're over in California too. They got a whole lot of extra laws.
Screw the paperwork. Yeah. Just throw money at them until they go away.
Okay? Lock the doors.
Like
change
Mercedes
the locks.
Does. Yeah. Change the locks. Lock them out. Throw money at them until they shut up. Okay. The good old fashioned way. Now, other news. Dean Wilson. It was rumored that this. I mean, he said this was going to be his last full season. And did this whole thing on his YouTube vlog. So, this is my last time doing all this. And I was like, is it though? And of course, like then he didn't do like a retirement press conference and a last kind of deal. Cause at the end of this season, he was basically saying, yeah, I think I'll come back for some select rounds next year. Or if somebody wants to give me a big enough contract, I'll race another full season. I was like, brother, just commit. Yeah. I mean, so my guess is either he's basically said he's going to come back to some degree next year for the AMA Supercross, And either he's going to just privateer himself to do a couple of his favorite rounds, like maybe a Daytona, probably Anaheim 1 because everyone wants to race that. I don't know what else, or someone's going to throw money at him because they're a crappy privateer team that needs a good rider to make him look good, and he'll race another season. So he will be coming back, unlike originally described by him. And the last thing to look at in regards to the silly season stuff, it won't be the last thing, but this is just one of the last things we have currently, because 250 silly season is absolutely abysmal right now. But Justin Cooper to Husky versus waiting for RJ Hampshire is going to be the big question we see from Husqvarna.
Justin Cooper to Husky.
There's a big pull being talked about for that because Justin Cooper is in a bit of a hard spot because he's grown up only racing Yamahas for his entire pro career. Loves the Yamaha, loves what he's getting from that team right now, except for the fact that he's not getting any money, right? And the problem is you've got Tomac that he's not going to race for cheap, and he keeps doing these 1-year deals, which takes up half of their money. And the front part of Cooper's contract was very light this year. And this year, the next season is a lot fatter of a deal. That's going to take up a lot more Yamaha's budget, and they're going to have nothing for Cooper. And Cooper's voiced this to the team. It's been an issue he brought up. So because of the fact that he's not going to get compensated unless they do some kind of really weird contract to where, hey, we can't pay you this year, but we know Tomac's probably gone after 2025. Although we keep saying that he just keeps doing 1-year deals and make everyone wait on their tails. But they're going to Yamaha's going to have to make a choice. They're either going to have to tell Eli, look, unless you want to commit to a 2-year deal, we're going to give you another 1-year deal because we know Cooper's locked in with them for a multi-year deal, right? So he's there and he's loaded the second year and the third or what. I think he has a 3-year deal. It could be 2. I could be wrong. But you got to pay Coop next year. You got to go tell Eli, hey, we'll pay you again for a 1-year, but we're going to sign Justin Cooper for a 3-year deal and we're going to backload the next 2. So he is going to get paid, and if you want to stick around for another year after 2025, you ain't doing it on a high contract. That's the choice they're going to make. And if they commit to Tomac, and they're going to tell Cooper, we're not going to do that kind of a backloaded deal for a 3-year for you, and we're just going to keep offering you 1 or 2 years with very, very low salary because we're in this handcuff situation with one of the all-time greats in Tomac. Husqvarna, that seat's probably going to be open. I think it's more and more talk about them moving on for Christian Craig from just his, the injuries he's dealt with. Obviously, if he goes and burns it up at outdoors, which we haven't gotten to see him in 450 outdoors yet, we know he's good at outdoors. Maybe that could change. But even with that, even if he goes and tears it up in outdoors, unless he goes and goes crazy in SMX, which I think is really unlikely, it's more likely than not that Christian Craig and Husqvarna are going to probably for the mutual part ways. And that second 450 spot is going to be pretty open. And I think Justin Cooper is kind of the perfect rider for them, with the exception of he just has never raced that steel chassis before. And the only thing that could be keeping Cooper from doing that is we saw what happened with Craig, right? Now, granted, that's 250 to 450, right? But still, we've seen plenty of guys get on that 450 Husqvarna and go to that steel frame and it not work out. So, but he is probably the top candidate for an immediate replacement for a Supercross only contract or just a 1-year deal next year. If Husqvarna goes that route, or they just race with one bike, like they end up doing anyways, because it seems that they just can't have more than one bike at a time with the way that they keep having guys injured between Malcolm and Christian Craig. And they just wait for RJ to get back up, or they're going to have to run 3 bikes at one point in next year. So that's going to be really interesting to look at as that plays out. So keep on the lookout for that in regards to silly season. So we're done with that. To close out last year's Supercross season, I got 2 quick discussion questions for you that I really want to hear your answer on. The first one I think is the wildest of. Here it is. So Karsten, of the following scenarios that played out this season, which are you more shocked or enraged, surprised, whatever the word you want to say is, amongst these choices? Eli Tomac racing 16 races and winning only once. Okay. Colt Nichols failing to score a top 10 finish. Now, granted, he was out for the first 6 or 7 rounds, so that played a factor in it, and he's on a new bike. But still, this is a guy that was a top 10 machine and even had a couple of top 6s and maybe a top 5 when he was with Honda last year. and we know how good of a tester he is at developing that bike. The other options, Malcolm Stewart racing 17 races and failing to secure a top 5. I want to jump off of a cliff. Quickly moving on, or Jason Anderson racing 17 races and failing to win. This was a guy that won, I believe, 7 races in 2022 fighting Tomac. Was it 7? 6 or 7?
He won a lot of, he was winning a lot at that time.
Yeah. I want to say he won 7. So which of those 4 between Tomac, Nichols, Stewart, and Anderson really kind of shocked you the most?
Honestly, it's the Colt Nichols one for me. I thought he was going to be a top 10. I thought he was going to be performing at a similar level to where Hunter Lawrence was performing at the beginning of the season. That's
even on a basically a privateer bike dressed as a factory bike. Like the Beta had some serious problems.
He's good though. Like he is a good rider, and I just
thought he wouldn't be a top 10 threat until after the first half of the season, and then once they got that back dialed, he would for sure be in.
That might be what a lot of the problem was they didn't have the first half of that season for him to be on the bike and riding it. And I think because Benny Bloss actually did pretty good, didn't he? Didn't he get some top 10s?
Yeah, it took him a couple of rounds, but Benny Bloss did. Actually, he may have got it in the 3rd round or 4th round. He got it knocked out pretty early, but they had some gaps, but he had a couple of top 10s.
Yeah.
And was consistently putting it in the mains, which their other guy that filled in for Colt could not do.
So, like, for him to not get a single top 10, kind of crazy to me. I guess the other one, if I had to have a close second, would be the Jason Anderson not getting a win. Usually every season, I mean, did I think he was going to be a title contender this year? Not really. But did I think he was going to at least get up there and, be in the fight for a win? Yeah, maybe at least one. I think having the addition of Jet in there and Cooper Webb riding so well with Yamaha and how well Chase took to the KTM, it definitely put more guys in there between Jason and that number 1 top spot on the podium. So, yeah, I don't know. Those are my. What was yours?
It's weird because obviously I had high hopes for Malcolm, and honestly, after what happened last season with him being out after 2 rounds with the knee injury, I was just so happy to see him racing, but I forgot the torment of what can happen when your favorite rider is, Malcolm Stewart or Chase Sexton. If just at any point something can happen and it not be good. In this case, I was shocked that he couldn't get a top 5 because of what we saw in 2022. We're like, he only had, I think, 3 podiums in 2022, but he was 3rd overall because he was a top 5 machine. And usually closer to a podium than he was 5th place in that 4 spot. And in 2023, even though he crashed in both those opening 2 rounds, that dude had race winning pace, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that was the fastest I've seen him ever. He was way faster in 2023 than he ever was in 2022. Yeah. And that's saying something because he was very fast in 2022, but he was just very consistent. In 2023, it looked like he took that next step to being closer to the guy to get that done. And dadgum, he was a mischief away in Anaheim 1 for getting it done. I will go to my grave saying that if he didn't hit false neutral when he was about to pass Chase Sexton on that tabletop, he was about to hunt Eli Tomac down. Tomac was losing pace. Sexton didn't have it in him. That's how Malcolm was able to battle back and get Sexton, about to get Sexton before he put it in neutral and face planted. Tomac was not far away, and both Sexton and Malcolm were running down Tomac again. And that was, I've never been more frustrated watching that race. Anywho, I think I even said that in the last episode too, so everyone knows. So for me, it was Malcolm, but at the same time, it does make sense because it's not like he's just even coming off of a regular ACL tear. He tore pretty much everything in that knee. That's why it took really more closer to a year than it was even the 6 to 9 months for him to recover from this thing. And he did not have as much time on the bike as we expected him to. We were originally thinking maybe more August, maybe, late July. We were even wondering if it was just a regular ACL, which we didn't find out until much later. It was not a regular ACL. Maybe he could even try to sneak in SMX. If he was able to come back for an outdoor round and get a couple points or two. No, I mean, it was multiple ligaments, ACL, MCL, all that stuff. Really, really nasty what went on. I think he was just dealing with the fact that not feeling like himself. One of the things that Jason Thomas, who's torn his ACL when he was riding, is it's something you feel bad. You just don't feel like you. Your coordination's off. It just doesn't feel the same. Like sometimes you just don't even feel like you're riding the same as you did ever again, even if you're doing better or worse. But obviously his biggest problem was the starts. I mean, just plain and simple. And honestly, watching his starts, for whatever reason, his initial get off looks fine. It's that second gear when you get halfway down is where he's losing it. Everyone else shifts up or whatever, just, and they take that next leap and he doesn't have it. And I honestly wonder if it's a power mapping issue or just a power issue with that Husqvarna, or if it is a Malcolm issue with the starts, because Christian and Craig had the same issue. And so I really don't know what to think at this point, because both were not bad starters in their 250 careers between Christian and Malcolm, but both have been terrible
Great starters
at their start. Yeah, both, but both over the last 2 years, terrible starts. And the whole thing with Malcolm's 2022 season being so good was he was a great starter in 2022. So I'm just scratching my head wondering what's going on. And a lot of his starts were bad because someone wrecked into him. Like the first 3 rounds straight, someone wrecked into him in the opening turn. It was ridiculous. So that plays a factor. That's a mental deal. But you look, dude, go back. I mean, go back. And if you don't think so, call me crazy next episode. That'll honestly make me feel more sane, because I'm scratching my head going, does Husqvarna have a power mapping issue? Because if you go back and watch those last couple rounds with his starts, he's not losing the start until he gets 30 yards down the straight. It's not like he's just not getting a jump. It's very frustrating. I don't know what's going on. I could just be going insane because I'm a Malcolm Stewart and Chase Sexton diehard fan. So, Karsten, you do the homework and you tell me. But with that being said, let's go to our last discussion question. Then we'll finally get into outdoors. This was something that was talked about in the Pulp Show last week, and I thought it was a fantastic question. Should the AMA revise how they score the Constructors' Championship? Currently, they take each constructor's top 450 rider and their top 250 rider and combine those points. And it's not like they do that per round. They just go to the end of the season and they go, okay, which of your 450 scored the most points? Which of your 250 scored the most points? And they add them together. And they do that for the factory teams. And in my opinion, it's kind of stupid, but it's kind of like they're handcuffed to that. But it's kind of stupid because then it just takes the team out of it. You take whatever team you have of riders and you say, well, yeah, only one of you mattered this year for the 2 classes. But then at the same time, that kind of seems like the only way you can make it anywhere close to fair for these other teams to just have one rider in each class, right? Like a Suzuki. Like Husqvarna after injuries, like Kawasaki Pro Circuit 250s after, well, actually they may not have anyone left at the end of the season, but whichever one's the highest left, So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it needs to be changed? Do you think they need to take the highest from each round? Maybe. I think that might be the best way to go, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the highest from each round doesn't sound like a bad way to do it at all. And I don't know. It's kind of tough because it doesn't work the same. Like, it doesn't work the same as with like F1 that does this,
where they just combine both.
And it's not as related to who's driving. Like if you have, let's say at the middle of the season, Max Verstappen like broke his leg and couldn't race the rest of the season. Well, Red Bull would still get the points that he had acquired up until that point in time.
Exactly.
Those points wouldn't go away. So, yeah, I think that just because a rider goes out doesn't mean that the team should lose those points. The team acquired those points. Yeah, I don't like the way they do it. Now that you mention it, I don't like it at all. I think that's a really silly way to do it.
And it's something that's never been a necessarily sought after and like a title that has a lot of weight to it. Like sometimes, like I think even Steve Mathis joked that back in his day when he was mechanicking for his riders in the early 2000s, that like Yamaha would find out they won the constructors like 3 months after Supercross, and the trophy would just show up in the mail, like because it just was just it was something that was determined but wasn't the primary focus, and they still struggle with that to this day. But I honestly, in my opinion, I think, and it seems like you agree, I think that the way you do it is you make it a team thing by taking the best rider from each round, that person's points, instead of just totaling it at the end of the season like they seem to currently do. I could have that wrong, but that was my understanding of it.
Well, because it's about a team being the most consistent, not a rider being the most consistent. And so by making it just your top rider in each class at the end of the season, there's no team consistency going on there. Because if you've got
it's frustrating. But
yeah.
You know what's not frustrating? Talking about the great outdoors, baby. Let's get into that. Before we talk about the two classes title favorites and sleepers, which is kind of going to be how we segment that up, do have a little bit more news to preview. On the sad side, there will be no Eli Tomac and no Cooper Webb for the first half of the season because both of them have hand injuries. Eli Tomac fell over, I believe, in the heat race in the second to last round in Denver. Yeah, it was Denver.
Yep.
Yeah. Did something to his hand there. I forget exactly what the diagnosis was. And then Cooper Webb, I think, had a practice crash 4 rounds ago or 3 rounds ago and tore his UCL, which I thought was up here, and it is, but apparently there's a part of the UCL that runs all the way near your thumb, and that's what he tore. So if you watched a lot of the footage from practice sessions and qualifying sessions and even the race, you'll watch him coming down start-finish jumps. He would tuck his thumb out like this, basically like from a powerlifting background, we used to call that suicide grip on bench because it was just a lot of people would bench that way to put more of the weight directly into your forearm, going to your elbow. But it was called that name because of the fact that the bar could just slip off and just go straight to your throat. I mean, it's just
personally, I always bench like that. It just makes sense. It feels right.
Funny enough, I did do that for a couple of months so that I could bench with a broken hand my sophomore year or junior
always
year
a good thing.
of high school. And I kept that a secret from the head trainer at the time. And but the funny thing was he knew I was doing it. He knew I was going to do something like that because he saw me max out when I came back all cleared like a week after I got cleared, and somehow I didn't lose any numbers. So I really couldn't keep it a secret when I came back. But anywho, that's what Cooper Webb was doing to just take the thumb and that UCL out of play whenever he could, and it was costing him pace. So yeah, that was tough to see. So unfortunately, both of those guys, and Tomac was really one of the ones that would be on our contender list for the 450 and not a sleeper, but just, you know how good he is outdoors. Heck, the dude definitely led us to winning. Oh goodness. Why am I forgetting the name of it? Like the Olympics for motocross. The nations.
Motocross nations.
Yeah, when we were not supposed to. So we know how good he is on a 450. We want to see that outdoors matchup with him and Jet, but we're not going to get it, unfortunately. Not for a full season. We will get him for select rounds on the back half. So other notables, Malcolm Stewart and Christian Craig, as of now, with no practice crashes, knocking on wood, they're both set to do a full outdoor season for the first time in a long time for both of them. And then, like we already talked about, Ken Roxon will not be there because of World Supercross. And as of right now, Kawasaki does not have a replacement for Adam Cianciarulo, who just retired from racing for the
that's surprising
to
me.
Kawasaki 450. I know I was surprised too, but I do think that just points even more towards Prado having that rumored 3-year deal with Kawasaki for 2025.
That would be interesting.
I've heard it was set in stone. But just they couldn't. Okay. It's the typical industry of Supercross and motocross to where it's like with Chase Sexton going to KTM. It was set in stone in October of 2023, but never announced until after motocross.
Yeah. So,
or really after
what are you gonna do?
SMX. It's weird how they have these clauses to where they can't talk about it. I don't know. I don't even know how it works, but yeah. So look out for that. But yeah, so we started with 450s or 250s. Where we starting here for the outdoors preview?
Let's go 250 first.
Okay.
Let's run it backwards. 250 and then main event 450. That's how we'll do it. So what are you looking at for title favorites this year?
Well, I've got 4 on my list of who I would consider very, very obvious threats for the title. And keep in mind, the nice thing about outdoors, what makes outdoors great, especially for 250s, is there's no coast. It's all one class. So you get all the talent every week competing against each other. You're getting to see all those matchups that sometimes are divided into coasts and only being shown at showdowns. You get those every week. Every week that they are racing, because sometimes they do take a week off. Unlike Supercross, they get 1 week off. But besides the point, my 4 is Hayden Deegan, Tom Vial, Levi Kitchen, and RJ Hampshire. And my quick explanation as to why Hayden Deegan, last year's season, shows everything you need to know. The dude took Hunter Lawrence all the way towards the end, or as close as he could towards the end, despite being a rookie and despite battling one of the Lawrence brothers. And Hunter Lawrence was no joke outdoors. Now, obviously, some engine troubles with Hunter Lawrence did play into that factor, but still there was times that Deegan was the fastest on track. That's racing, right? And Deegan did more than enough to show that he could win no matter who you put in front of him outdoors. So look for Hayden and keep in mind, one thing we didn't mention about Hayden Deegan in regards to why he struggled to try to contend for this year's Supercross title, that wrist injury he had early in the season was way more than what he talked it up to be. Now, that's his own fault, because he could have came out and said, like what everyone is saying, that he actually did break his, not scapula, whatever it's called, in his wrist, that he actually did break his wrist. Like it's been apparently confirmed, but not by Deegan himself. And that he did have almost a month and a half off the bike because of that. And it's, he said in his own words in post-race interviews after the last round that he did not stop feeling pain in that left wrist until 2 rounds to go. So we saw that there was a little bit of a pace issue in the first half of the season. Not to mention, he had 2 races where he got just decleated in the first 2 starts by the same person both times, Seth Hamaker, because he just said bonsai and just went for it. He's kind of notorious for doing that, and that affected it too. And yet he was still, taking it down at least to the last round, and looked better and better as he went on. And he still won early. He won the 3rd round at Dallas. So
yeah.
I expect him for outdoors, and that seems to be where he specializes a little bit more because he's still learning Supercross. I expect him in outdoors to be very dominant. Well, not dominant, very, very good every single round. I don't know if dominant because of the other guys on this list. Now, Tom Vial, we talked about it, 2-time MX2 champ, and won an outdoors race last year with Hunter Lawrence in play, with Deegan in play, with a Justin Cooper, who literally was sent down there from 450s to 250s just for outdoors by Yamaha to just go and win that championship. And he couldn't because Tom Vial, Hunter Lawrence, and Hayden Deegan existed. So look out for Tom Vial. Definitely going to be even better outdoors with how good he was indoors. Levi Kitchen, you saw the big step he took this season, right? Dude looks so consistent, so buttery smooth, and is just so cool, calm, and collective. I mean, with all the ups and downs that happen in this sport, even his own, dude was so level-headed, continued to ride beautifully. Obviously, just flucked it and didn't fall his way. He rode great in the last round. So, Adam Cianciarulo famously said when he lost in a very heartbreaking fashion his 250 West title, I believe, 3 or 4 years ago, that he never would have won that outdoor title he won in 250s if he didn't lose indoors in 250 because it was so motivating for him. So, could be the difference maker with Levi Kitchen and RJ Hampshire. RJ's going to RJ, baby. He can put himself in or take himself out of races with how hard he'll send it. But the dude took a big step this year in his consistency. Other than one mistake, and I believe it was the 2nd or 3rd round where he went into that last corner and sent it when obviously he shouldn't have, and he would have kept that red plate, and instead he flopped over with 1 turn to go. If you remember that, I think it was round 2 or 3. And Jordan Smith was behind him, so he would have gained points. That's the only mistake we saw from RJ this year. And that was the only typical like RJ being RJ kind of mistake. So the mature, like the experience is there for RJ, and he still has that full send, almost bulldog like speed that you can see. It'll be okay. We've seen him put the consistency together indoors. Can you do it outdoors? So those are my 4 in regards to obvious contenders. I don't know if you've got anyone you want to put in that category yourself.
I think that's a good list. I do have one question. This might just be me not knowing what's going on, but what is Max Anstey doing for motocross?
I don't even know.
Is he racing motocross?
Hold on a minute. I'm about to look this up.
Because I was just looking at our list and he's nowhere on here.
No one's been talking about him outdoors. Let me look. For those listening, I'm literally having to Google. I've never had to do this before in a show because I'm usually overly prepared. I'm literally Googling, is Max Anstey racing outdoors?
We have to know.
We got to know.
I would imagine, I think he's a 5th guy to put on that list if he's racing 250 outdoors.
He might be racing with Yamaha.
Which would be...
That'd be insane.
Dude, Max Anstey racing outdoors with Star Racing. Yeah.
Let's see here.
Sure enough.
I don't know if... Let's see here. I'm going to go with no for now out of conservation because I didn't see anything in outdoor previews talking about him. I think he had mostly Supercross only deals because he is an older guy. I've watched tons of previews and he hasn't been talked about. So I think he may have a Supercross only deal and he may do outdoors again when he gets that Yamaha deal that is set in stone, but still not formally announced by him because, that stupid BS with this industry. But he's not on lists that I've seen or any previews that I've heard of. But for full disclosure, he very well could be. And this is a guy that came from an MXGP background. So he is great. He is good at outdoors when he does do it. But I don't think he is as of this time, but I could very much be wrong.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's assume he's not. We'll see. Then if that's the case, yeah, I think this is a great top 4 because we go down to adding a 5th guy on there, and there's nobody that's got quite the consistency of these 4 guys. That's just how it is. We've got we can get into our sleepers list here a little bit, but you got guys like Joe Shimoda, Seth Hammaker, McAdoo, Jordan Smith. They have their moments of speed, but the consistency is just not there.
And if they were to go off on a tear and be consistent, like you'd believe it because they have the potential. Yeah. But you can never just go and say those guys, especially the pro circuit guys, and go, they're going to contend, with the exception of Levi.
Right. And maybe that's because he wasn't on pro circuit for the longest time. He's been with Star, and so he doesn't have the curse fully embedded within him yet. It's always possible.
Well, he did get it in that showdown with
a little bit
with Kawasaki losing both red plates in one night.
Seth Hammaker came in. Yeah, they were coming in there just like, I'm gonna give it to you physically right now. I'm gonna give you the curse.
Well, I mean, the 2 red plates took each other out. McAdoo cross jumped into Levi Kitchen, and the 2 red plates are responsible for the 2 red plates not having red plates anymore.
It's the Cali way. What can we say? And that rhymed.
Or Mitch.
So,
or Mitch. Go.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough to take one of those guys and put them in that 5th spot as a title favorite without getting a couple rounds in and going, okay, do they have the consistency here? But, and this is the thing, like someone like Joe Shimoda, right? We know he has a poor first half of the year, comes in at the back half and really puts together. Is that him doing that again this last year, or is that him getting used to the Honda and so now he's kind of rolling? We don't know.
We don't know because he consistently has had this deal to where early in the season he cannot deal with the early title contention pressure. Now, obviously, this year you can say he was getting used to the Honda, but I don't know, brother. We know that the Honda has traditionally been the best 250 bike in regards to overall performance, but that's been the last 3 years when you've had the Lawrences there. So I think that the best bike is the Yamaha. We know the Yamaha has the best power unit, and that's why usually the Yamahas are much better outdoors.
Yeah,
but
matters a lot more.
Indoors, the Honda's really dropped off this year for the 250s. Obviously not in the 450s, but like,
yeah.
Anywho. So with Shimoda, we saw the same thing. All of a sudden, when he was pretty much completely out of title contention, he wins.
Yeah.
And he hole shots, he fixes his starts magically get fixed. It's like I don't know if it was actually him making the development steps with his setup and the bike to get there, or if it was more of a mental deal with the pressure off, or if it was both. I think it seems to be both. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, it's definitely a combination of things. But like you were saying, he comes out this season and, we get to the second half and he's a title contender. I wouldn't be that shocked because he's got the speed. He's got to put it all together. Same with – come on, dude. Yeah, that's fine.
My cat's being an absolute spaz in the background, so luckily I have this kind of zoomed in. But if you see a cat on crack in the back, that's Kit Kat.
Cat on crack in the back. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, but we've also got so we got the guys like Joe Shimoda, Jalik Swoll, Seth Hamaker, McAdoo. Like, okay, they got some experience under their belt. They came out swinging. Wouldn't be shocked. But then we've got some rookies in here, like Daxton Bennick and Julian Beaumaire, who, I mean, it's kind of up in the air, honestly. And they could absolutely crush.
Or they can at least just be people that go in and win a one-off race, or go like 2-3 for an overall if there's enough craziness, right? I mean, I look at who we have written down here for sleepers, and with the young guys, Chance Hymas is probably the most outside one, because I still believe he tore his ACL again early in Supercross and is still kind of riding with one bad ACL. I believe that's still how it is. Daxton Bennick, I think, we saw flashes of him being great in Supercross, and then there were some others that it was more mediocre, which is typical of a rookie year. Jordan Smith, sometimes he's great, sometimes not. It seems he's more often great in indoors, much like a lot of guys on the pro circuit team. So like Seth Hamaker can be good. Like Seth Hamaker, any day could be his day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we really just don't know what to expect of him, other than he's going to be a variable and bring a lot of variability to that Kawasaki team. McAdoo and Faulkner are my biggest question marks, because we know both of them aren't healthy or fully healthy yet. McAdoo could be. I have no word on whether or not he is going to be good to go, because he did break his scapula at the showdown.
Right.
He had that big fall early, and then he fell again in the main event. But really, he finished that rest of that I think he may have pulled. No, I think he finished the rest of that main event. But afterwards, he was feeling so bad, he got it checked out and discovered he had a broken scapula. So, I mean, like, that's when he pulled the plug on that. He had lost a red plate. He knew Vial and Deegan were going to have the momentum. He wasn't going to catch up, especially hurt. So he pulled himself out to get that healed up. So maybe McAdoo comes back, but I don't see him being a threat outdoors. Just like even if Austin Faulkner was healthy, we know how big of a drop-off there is over the last couple of years with Faulkner outdoors versus indoors. But the biggest thing with Faulkner is we have no idea if he's even going to race. Now, granted, like, he has every reason to take the rest of the year off with how bad of a wreck he had. But he was himself saying that about this time a month ago. I remember I was sending you reports and screen recordings from his interview with Swamp Moto, saying that he was going to get back on the bike and maybe even potentially try to be training at the end of Supercross season for outdoors, or just try to sneak in a couple of Supercrosses at the end, because he was lucky that the vertebrae that he fractured were the little winglets, and that there's no surgery needed to recover from that. His scapula was really the thing that was going to take the longest. And it seemed like I remember he and his wife posted a thing, and his wife said he's gonna be back to work next week or whatever, after they went on like a Vegas trip or something. And I was like, we got like 6 rounds to go. Like, is he coming back? Like, what's going on? But it seems like there's been some kind of a setback. but there's no official reports. I'm just hearing what I hear from the sources at Pulp and Tracer X, Swamp Moto, stuff like that. I literally just have Forkner, MIA, I don't know, as my note sheet. So I would be, I think my guess is, and as all things Supercross, Motocross, we'll get an official announcement the night before, and then we just go. Could have told us earlier, brother. Makes no difference. It makes no, like, just tell us. But anywho, but I think the biggest rookie to watch is going to be Julian Beaumer, in my opinion, over Daxton Bennick.
I don't
know about you. He was my favorite rookie to watch.
He's good.
And he was rookie of the year. He was rookie of the year, too, in 250s. So
a lot of potential with that guy. I think he's going to be a contender next year for Supercross as well.
And the other guy we're leaving out, well, I mean, we kind of breezed over him, but Joey Savacci on that Triumph. We're finally getting to see him race for the first time in a while. You cannot sleep on that guy outdoors on a 250. You can't.
Yeah.
Now, will he be consistent on that new Triumph outdoors, this is going to be the first time it's going to be outdoors in a motocross nationals. Obviously, it's been doing really well in the I believe it's been doing an MXGP. No, not, or was it British Motocross Series? Might have been British Motocross Series. I forget. Whichever series it's been doing outdoors. I know they got a podium on their opening round, and they've been doing good. So that'll be interesting. So I guess to wrap up 250s, we're in agreement on who our favorites are for the title, who we expect to contend. Of the guys we've got listed here, with Joe Shimoda, Joey Savacci, Jalek Swoll, Jordan Smith, Chance Hymas, Daxton Bennick, Julian Beaumer, Seth Hammaker, McAdoo, and Faulkner, if you want to potentially act like they're in it. Who is your biggest sleeper to put themselves into contention with the other four?
I'm going to be honest. I think it's Jalek Swoll.
I can see that.
I think he had some great speed there at the end. When he was healthy, getting the Triumph figured out. Yeah, I think he could be the guy. And he's got a little bit of, hanging out the elbows in him. Mm-hmm. And that can be very useful in motocross. So,
and he's got raw speed. His main thing has been staying healthy.
Yeah. So I'm going, if he can keep it on two, I'm going Jalek Swoll.
I 100% agree with that. For me, it's Joey Savacci, just because of the fact that
Team Triumph all the way.
I mean, we got to remember this guy is very, very good, and he would have a 250 Supercross championship if it weren't for a Zach Osborne that power drived him in a bowl turn after the last whoop section with one turn to go. So, I mean, you want to talk about a guy wanting redemption for the rest of his career? That's Joey Savacci. So, this will probably, I believe this to be his last run at 250s, with his run with Triumph. And next year, supposedly, they're still aiming to do a 450 team, but I've heard it's been a little more shaky trying to get that 450 Triumph to get going. But that was the initial plan, is he does 250 outdoors, then 450 Supercross next year, because he's not allowed to race 250 indoors because he pointed out, which was kind of stupid. But anywho, so for me, it's Savacci. He's got the experience. I think he still has the raw speed in him. The question will be, he does not have the miles in race conditions that Jalek Swoll has. So how long will it take for him to get up and running? So we'll see how that plays out. On to the big boys?
On to the big boys.
Okay.
So what are you thinking? I think that, we cannot overlook the fact that Jet hasn't lost a championship in the last 3 or 4 years. 3 years.
Yeah. And when we're talking about title favorites, I think, I don't know what your thought is, but for me, there's two guys that are on paper.
Yeah. The speed is sitting with Jet Lawrence and Chase Sexton. That's
one of those two, we're praying to God shows up. The other is Jet Lawrence, and he is the Thanos right now. Except he's much skinnier than Thanos, but almost has the same level of trap game with how wide his freaking neck is. He is a ridiculous, just weird, very weirdly built human, but it's perfect for motocross and supercross. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
It comes down to those two, and it comes down to, has Chase figured out that KTM? And it seemed like he finally got it. Heck, we didn't even talk about that for Supercross. Chase Sexton did great in his last round. We finally seemed to get old Chase. I get it. Jet was coasting, but Chase, for the first time this whole season, finally checked that box as being the fastest qualifier. And we know Jet wasn't holding back doing that.
Yeah.
So,
and he was maintaining that speed throughout the race, and he wasn't screwing it up. So
and no one could challenge him. He maintained a 3.5 second gap the whole time, and just looked phenomenal. But like I said, the question is, can he convert that outdoors when he was on a bike that he had more time on in the Honda? Granted, we talked about for eons about how twitchy that Honda was and how it really didn't play into Chase's riding style during the his last outdoor season. And really that was a cause for a lot of his crashes in the indoor season last year, in which he even still won. But can Chase bring that speed that was the only kind of speed that, other than Ken Roczen, could consistently at least catch Jet? Let alone he never was able to pass him, but he could always get on that rear wheel of his and then give me a heart attack and make me throw the remote. But he could get there, right? Yeah. It's like Aggie football. It's painfully interesting. Can he do that? But not just can he do that, but can he get over that hump and can he do it early? Because I feel like if he can get an early win at Paula, which is his favorite track in round 1, it's on. It is, because we've seen how good Chase Sexton can be outdoors, in which he took Tomac down in the tightest championship outdoors fight in history for 450 outdoors just 2 years ago. So what from what you've seen and from what you've seen on, heck, the social medias, the buzz around that KTM group, do you think Chase can bring it to Jet outdoors to any capacity?
It's definitely going to be tough. I mean, looking at the stats, Jet's never lost a 450 outdoor race in his career.
22-0.
So there's something to look at there. But I think that if anybody is going to take the fight to Jet, it's going to be Chase. And I think this is the most confident Chase has seemed to me in his ability to get that done.
I think this is the most confident he's looked in the last 2.5 years. Truly. Yeah. I mean, and we're talking about just what 2 weeks have done for him. I mean, for him to go out and do what he did at Salt Lake. Salt Lake. That's exactly what he needed going into outdoors. He had to have that. He needs to hold on to that for as long as it takes. Because confidence has been his problem for the last 2 years. Confidence in the sport is such a huge factor. And in his last 1.5 years with that Honda, he lost so much of it. And I mean, even with him winning out indoors in 2023 in Supercross, like, still, that didn't fix his confidence issue. Whatever confidence he had coming out off of that, he lost in round 1 of outdoors. Right. So, I'm hoping he comes back and truly gives us a battle, because if it's not for that, we're going to have to be relying on some of these sleepers right here to come up and at least be contenders to win a race.
Yeah. So for me, looking at this, we got some sleepers here who could have some potential. You never know.
It's a smaller list than the sleepers for 250, right? Because we know that it's just how high the top 2 are.
Yeah. And for me, my eyes go to the bottom of this list here. I don't think we have them in any particular order. But I think that the guy that, if it's not going to be Chase, there's a good chance it's the other one named Lawrence that could bring the fight. And that would be very interesting to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter he get something done.
Well, I heard an interesting interview with the Lawrence brothers' dad. I think it's Darren Lawrence, if I remember correctly. I want to say, but you got to keep in mind Hunter's maturity in if he does get into a title fight with anyone, he is the most mentally strong, I think, on the entire grid. I mean, one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard from anybody in motorsport was when Deegan inserted himself by way of Hunter having an engine failure and losing a bunch of points in his outdoor round in the middle of last season, and Deegan winning, and put himself in the lead of the championship, got a red plate, And in typical kind of Deegan, and by that I mean, there's my crackhead cat. In kind of Deegan and Brian Deegan fashion, kind of start stirring the pot a little bit, trying to get under the skin of Hunter Lawrence, trying to get him off his game and trying to put the pressure on him. And everyone started asking Hunter Lawrence questions about, can he handle the pressure of the title fight with young Deegan? Because Deegan has nothing to lose and Hunter has to win this. This is his last shot to close the door in his 250 career with a championship. And after he goes and answers the bell and wins, his response was, that wasn't pressure. Pressure's what my family couldn't eat. When they were living off of ramen noodles and no sponsorship money, off of I think $70,000 is what they had to live off of for 3 years or whatever, when they had to come over from Australia and go to MSGPs to get their career started. I mean, that I got chills when I heard that for the first time. And Darren Lawrence was quoted in a recent interview saying that Jet is a 20-year-old going on 17 and Hunter's a 24-year-old going on 29 or something like that. And I think that's a perfect way to describe him. Jet still has those moments where he's still just kind of like a kid, but he's, on track. He's very mature in his riding style for the most part. But the overall maturity sometimes is, you've seen some of the quotes he said off the track in regards to just kind of his silliness of going for, 1 down, 71 to go. And everyone's just like, brother, you're not McGrath yet. Just chill.
Yeah.
And then there's Hunter, who just is consistently, he's been there. He's been through, Hunter is the reason Jet is so accelerated in his growth, is because he had to watch what Hunter went through, which was rigorous to say the least, especially with the injuries he faced 5 years ago that held him up for quite a while. It was said a lot by Darren Lawrence that Hunter's trials is what made Jet great. So pretty soon, as Hunter continues to get more miles on that 450, he's going to, I think, contend at some point and give Jet a run for his money. That could be this outdoor.
Yeah, I think so. 100%. What do you think? What are your thoughts on the rest of these sleepers here we got?
I put Christian Craig for pure vibes. But he can be really good outdoors. And in my opinion, he is the best of the rest on this list. The rest of the ones that I have is Dylan Ferrandis, because he's an outdoor champion, right? He's very, very good.
New bike this year for outdoors. He was on Yamaha last year.
Yep, and he hated that Yamaha. Probably half the reason he didn't get another offer from Yamaha before the Cooper Webb deal opened up, because he was in talks with them, was because he kept complaining about the bike all the time through the entire outdoor season. And throughout, he had a reputation for always complaining about that bike, no matter how good he did. So he really kind of burned a bridge there with Yamaha. But all of a sudden, he goes from being that guy for the last couple of years to with Firepower Honda. Yeah, no, yep. Phoenix Honda. Is it Phoenix Honda? Phoenix Honda.
Hang on.
Preseason testing, the dude for the first time in 3 years said, "I love this bike," and I was like, "Watch out!" And then he was a great top 5 guy for the first couple of rounds. Yeah, Phoenix. Okay. And he was a great top 5 guy with a bike that he finally said, this bike is fit for me, because that team was 100% in on him. So if he is going to do the full outdoors, he's got to watch, because he is very, very good outdoors, but he has to have the bike set up for him. And we saw at least he was able to be a podium guy with a bike that really wasn't working well for him last year. So imagine what he can do with a bike and a whole team that's solely behind him, even though they are they're privateer, but it's Phoenix Honda, so they're getting almost full factory support from Honda. It's kind of weird. It's kind of like muck off. You know what I mean? So watch out for him. Plessinger was Aaron Plessinger, one of the only other guys that was able to at least get on Jet's rear wheel. The second round last year, he ran him down, and then Jet did his usual thing of, once AP got within 2 seconds, he go, "Oh, Mike, I've got to try now," and then just took off. But he was able to run the pace with him for a little bit, had flashes. So I would look out for him. He obviously took a big step in his overall riding this year, got that first win, huge. Pressure's off of him to get that done now. So now it's just consistently being up front. So look out for that. We've already talked about Hunter Lawrence. So the last guy I have on my list for just being a kind of a dark horse is Justin Cooper, doing his first 450 outdoors. But we know that guy's so good, but more importantly, so consistent outdoors. I think he has a record for the amount of podiums he has in his 250 career, specifically outdoors, but not a lot of wins with it in 250s. We saw exactly that last year. A lot of podiums. I think he had one overall win last year. So we know he can be really consistent. I expect him to always be in the top 5 outdoors, especially with Tomac and Webb out of the equation. I could definitely see him being a consistent podium threat and podium guy. The question will be, can he either be so consistent while Chase and Jett are hopefully duking it out that like by just pure consistency, he can be a contender in that way, maybe converting some 3-3s to an overall, a 2-3 to an overall win on a weekend, or is he finally going to take that step outdoors and start to put wins together consistently? I'm interested to see what your thoughts are on him after watching him for a full outdoor season indoors. Do you think his overall consistency indoors can translate outdoors, but then go another step up and go to now let's put a win in the column?
Yeah, I think that final step is he's going to have to get aggressive when he's riding, because that was his big struggle last year with outdoors. He had the pace, but he just wasn't able to just. Sometimes you just got to door him, and just run some guys off the track. And he's not. Doesn't seem to be that kind of guy. He's got to throw his weight around a little more and get in there and get the job done. So if he can,
starts were an issue too at times too.
Yeah, so if he can put it all together. I think it's the final piece of the puzzle for him in outdoors is probably just going to be to be a little more aggressive. But he's got speed, and if he can get consistent and aggressive, I think it's all there.
Yeah, I mean,
so
great rider.
Maybe he's not.
We saw from him last year too when he was doing like 450 races indoors.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's going to be a title contender, but I think he's definitely got a potential to be a podium guy for sure.
Mm-hmm. I almost expect that of him. If he doesn't come away from this 450 outdoors with a podium, I'd be very shocked. And I would say, that would kind of be, especially with your other 2 teammates being out, that would kind of be a failure, because I honestly think there is a pretty significant drop off. There's already a drop off when you take Jett and Chase out of the equation when it comes to outdoors, but I think there is a bit of a drop off when you look at Justin Cooper, and then you go to everyone else. I think he can be that third guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Ferrandis or Plessinger. Either
or Hunter.
Hunter. Yeah. Never mind. We're back to square one. I think there's 4 guys that could. My guess is there's going to be one of these 4 guys that takes that role, and the other 3 are just going to be wishing they were that guy. I don't think it's going to be back and forth.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be one of these guys that takes that step, and the rest of them are going to be a couple podiums here and there, but overall's probably looking at 4 or 5 consistently.
I would have to agree with that. I think that's a very likely outcome. Yeah.
Last question I have for you before we wrap up is there's a big name we left off, even as a sleeper. Jason Anderson. Do you think he has any kind of a prayer of even contending for an overall or consistent podium? I don't think he does. I wasn't impressed with what I saw out of him last season, the little bit we did. But I don't know. I really don't know.
That's a big question mark. Last season, the speed was not there. Obviously, he didn't do terrible this Supercross. I think, he didn't have a win, but he had some speed at times.
Looked better towards the last couple rounds. I think he got a podium. Killed Cooper Webb to do it, but got a podium.
Whatever you got to do, right?
That's Supercross.
Yeah, that's racing. So I don't know. I think we'll have to see. And I think that if he does have some speed and he's up there in that 3-4 second place spot type thing, seeing some battles with him and Hunter is going to be interesting, because the beef started off this year between Jett and Jason. And towards the end of the season, as Hunter and him started riding similar pace, they were colliding a little bit. And we even had a
little bit of a tussle.
Yes, a bit of a dust up, as they call it in some parts of the world.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Whenever Jason lapped Hunter and he just ran it up on him. Yeah.
Well, and the beginning of that race, Anderson threw it down on Hunter and ran him up and then knocked him over. And let's not forget that who was directly behind those 2 and saw that go down? It was Jett. Mm-hmm. And then later that race, this was actually kind of funny watching the replay. Jet catches up to Jason, throws one down the inside of him, kind of has some contact with him, kind of like little elbows out, kind of, okay, I saw what you did, my brother. I'm gonna give you a little bit, nothing crazy. I'm gonna give you a little bit, let you know I'm here, let you know
Yep.
hey, you were stupid. But then you could see he obviously freaking tried to throw down a heater next lap because he knew Anderson was somewhere close to him and was probably ready to throw, probably to send it into Valhalla. Okay. Yeah.
No.
The next quarter he was just ripping it. No roll speed, just straight throttle coming out of that. But even Jet made some comments post race saying that sometimes someone's got to go there and shut up his mouth and put him in his place with Anderson. And then Anderson put out let's just put PG-14 and above Instagram post following the race, basically saying he was ready to go 2 for 2 on helmet grabs after that race, because he and Hunter had an altercation following that race in which they were mouthing off at each other, and they got fined for their battles on track. With Hunter holding Jason Anderson up, and then Anderson pretty much decleating Hunter Lawrence, even though it really wasn't that bad when I looked at it, but still, like, given the history. Anywho, it's just going to be interesting to see how, but Anderson went on to say, like, if the sport needs, like, he's like, I don't go out of my way to play the villain, but if this calls for it, I will take up the throne. Like, I will be the villain if you want me to be. Add in 6 or 7 explicatives in there, for some salt and pepper. And because that's just how Jason Anderson does it, I guess. They don't call him El Hombre for nothing. So, yeah. Do you think that him having beef with the Lawrences makes him right any better? Because I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think it could. I think I could give him a reason to.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say he's done it all, but he's had his fun in the sun, and he's probably looking to retirement here pretty soon. He's got a kid now. And so, yeah,
he's done everything there is to do indoors. He's a 450 champion. People forget. He's the last guy to win with Husqvarna.
You got to have something bigger than you to fight for, and fighting for, shutting somebody up that you don't like. That's a good reason. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Do you think it distracts Jet though with that? Because Jeff's in this beef too.
I don't know.
Hunter is going to be closer to Jason than I think Jet will be on track. So I think Hunter and Jason could definitely get some more scuffles in. Do you think that could affect Jet by Jet getting involved in that?
I don't know. I don't think so, but we'll see. I hope that whatever happens, it's interesting.
I mean, yes, I don't want to see another 22-0 outdoors again. And I don't think we will, because we have way more factory riders, even with Tomac and Webb out, than we ever did last season. Like last season going in, I think we had like 7. Mm-hmm. One of those was shoot. I was going to diss somebody. I forgot who I was going to diss, but one of those was completely irrelevant, and it was very obvious who it was. I'm forgetting who it was, but you know what? No need to throw extra shade. No need. But we really had truly like 6 factory riders, and only 2 of them were within 30 seconds of the lead, and that was Jason Jet. They were just like racing like 450 Class A. Everyone else was Class B. That's how fast they were going. I mean, literally, there were several races where they lapped almost the entire field. It was that bad. Yeah. So, I hope we don't get that again. I don't think we'll get another 22-0. But I think the question lies with Chase Sexton. Can the now number 4, not 23, and not now, because he's now done with indoors and going outdoors, he goes from number 1 to number 4. The question will be, guys, and the question we'll leave y'all with, we'll pull up a poll for this, is can the number 4, Chase Sexton, be the guy to take it to Jet Lawrence in this outdoor 450 championship in which Jet went 22-0 last season? So we'll leave y'all with that question. Thank you guys for hanging with us for another long one. Obviously, our preview episodes, we never try to just dice them up. We get into the weeds here because that's how you preview an entire season. But we'll try to be back out here another week or two, kind of unwrapping all the stuff that goes on. Like I said, we got as we talked about in the last episode, this next weekend we got the greatest weekend in motorsports, baby. That's Memorial Day weekend. Motocross on Saturday, Monaco qualifying Saturday, and then you wake up Sunday to the Monaco Grand Prix. Then you go to Indy 500, and then you fall asleep to the NASCAR Coke 600, baby. The sound of V8 engines just purring in the background. Enjoy it. So thank you guys for listening. Those who tuned in. Let us know in the comments on our posts on social media what you guys want to hear more from us about. Any questions you guys got, make sure to answer our poll questions on Spotify that we leave, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Later.